Welcome to Superchargers. I'm Daniel Thomas. Let's go. G'day guys, my guest on this episode is Jonathan Miller. Jonathan has had a successful career in the finance industry, but he also produced the award-winning film Publish or Peril. Known for empowering others and disrupting industries, Jonathan blends expertise in finance, business, and filmmaking to inspire success and innovation. Here is my conversation with Jonathan Miller. Filmmaking is a risky business. So the fact that you've invested in a film and have been a producer on Publish or Peril is a brave venture coming from the finance world. So could you just, if you wouldn't mind recapping a little bit of just how the film came about, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, I had always had this interest in telling stories, and film, I think, is next to in person. Even like video, like we're doing now, it's the most powerful medium, especially when you get everything working together with the music and the lighting and the sound and the story and there's something about it that is very, very powerful communication medium to tell stories and to impact people. With that said, I knew that getting into the business 5-6 years ago, as I started to research it, even though I had a writing background, entrepreneurial background, I'd never written a script before. We had some ideas. So I was introduced to David Liban, who is the director of the University of Colorado Film Department, University of Colorado Denver Film Department. And I asked him, he was sitting on the couch right over here, actually. And at the end, I said, what have you been working on? And, what are you working on? And he said, well, I just wrote this script that won some awards during COVID. I think it's pretty funny. And it's called Publish or Perish. And I took it back that night and read the script, and I loved it. It was different. It was funny. It had good twists and turns. So I called him up and I said, what are you doing with this film? And it was really an opportunity for myself to, one, be behind a project that I enjoyed, and all the people involved with it were great. David had made films before. We worked extremely well together, but it was an awesome learning experience for me, because just like going into German school as a kid, where you have no choice but to learn, because you're making mistakes so fast, but you're learning so fast as well. I think that's the same thing that happened to me with David. Is I didn't know what I even know now. And there's lots of things I think we've talked about and would do differently. But overall, with what we had to work with, and we filmed during COVID. So we had to follow all of the SAG, we were a SAG production. So we had to follow all the procedures. We were running out of tests. We had like 5 people. We're like, if any of these people on set get sick, we are in big, big trouble. And we were very fortunate that we were able to shoot through COVID with mask protocols and everything. The University of Colorado was super supportive. We got the Colorado Film Tax Incentive. So we did everything by the way that you're supposed to do it, to the best we could. And we learned a lot along the way. But in the end, we made a very good film, a film that a lot of people like. It's funny. It's gotten great reviews. It's different. It screens super good in theaters. And so we're excited. It was a great experience and very entrepreneurial, because I think filmmakers, like we talked about before, are very entrepreneurial. You're coming together to go do something. You're creative, but that's what's so neat, is that you're creating something, you're doing something, and you got people who are passionate about doing it. So it's really no difference than winning in business. People see the glory, they don't know the story. And there's so much story that goes into anything that you create or do or achieve. And it doesn't just happen. You have to go put a lot of work and effort and blood, sweat, and tears into it.
I love it. I think we've caught up quite rapidly to where we were. It was awesome to hear it the second time, actually. Very cool. But yeah, what I was also touching on was that what is so cool is this collaboration you had with David, and the fact that you're invested personally and from a business sense. So it meant something to you, as opposed to just perhaps coming in as like a silent investor and leaving at that. So that sounds like an awesome collaboration. And just speaking from my own experience in businesses, I've had some frustrations in the past where, I've been giving my heart and soul to a company. And then when I've sort of pushed the guys above a little bit to perhaps have some kind of share, I've hit like roadblocks. So I just, in terms of people's passion and drive and motivation, I think if people were had some kind of investment, which is often just not on the table. They're kind of the monkey, just on the monkey wheel. I think that can change perhaps what work people do and how much passion they actually put into it.
Well, I'll give you two thoughts on that because I think you're spot on, but there's a caveat I'll give to it as well. First of all, I couldn't agree more that when you own something and you have ownership in something and you just treat it differently than if it's just something you're getting a paycheck for, right? When you have a vested interest from the cause standpoint, look at cause-oriented enterprises or businesses, or there's passionate about it, or you're infusing yourself into it. It's different. First of all, we should caveat this with that most films and most businesses don't make a lot of money. So there's a lot of quabbling about the potential profits that a lot of times don't materialize. If you can make your money back and make a little bit of money, that's generally a good thing. But I agree with you that having ownership, some ownership in what we do is a big deal. But I think there's this whole dissertation. People are going to know a lot more probably in your audience than me about this, about inherited versus earned wealth. And I think when you don't have to pay a price to acquire something, right? If you're given something without something in exchange, that's where it's difficult. And so I think one of the challenges is there's a sacrifice that needs to be made, right? Because people are either putting money in or putting effort in. Maybe you take reduced pay. Oh, nobody wants to talk about that. No. I want the ownership without the reduced pay, without the hours, right? And so, but when there's something given, when there's something risked in exchange for that, that's when it fully materializes. That's when all of a sudden you say, one is I have something on the line. Like, gosh, if this doesn't work out, I could lose something. And I'm willing to take that risk because I believe in it. And then when it happens, it makes it so much more rewarding and better. And then when it doesn't, you learn something from it. But the lesson's different if something was granted to people versus if you had to earn it or exchange something of value for it. And so we see that in the investment industry as well, sometimes with second, third generation wealth. It's just different than the generation that earned it.
I think belief is the strong word there, like having a belief in it, regardless of outcome, and not necessarily an expectation on a certain outcome, just being willing to take a leap of faith and go all in on something. I think there's something to be really said for that. It's a different kind of energy and investment.
When you start talking about belief and success stuff, I get excited even talking to you about this. But Napoleon Hill said, "What the mind can conceive and believe, it can achieve." And see, this is the weird thing. I compiled this book when I was 20 years old, I believe, and I just had it from former coaches or people. I got reprint permission on various things, and just made it in college. But I didn't have any life experience to validate so many of the quotes and things that were in there. And so the quote, "What the mind can conceive and believe it can achieve," for years from the stage when I was doing speeches for our group or other folks, I would say, I had these group of people that were telling me I could make it, and this group of people that were telling me I couldn't make it. And I believed the ones that told me I could make it, and that made all the difference. And there is something to that about surrounding yourself with people who are synergistic to what you're trying to do, that aren't constantly telling you negative things, because that can affect your belief level. But in hindsight, I can tell you that belief can also, there's different various levels of belief. I think when I first started, I was doing all the right things. I was working my butt off, and I believed, but really I hopefully believed. I'm like, gosh, I hope this works out, but maybe it doesn't. Do I need to hedge my bets somehow? And as you get more experience and as you do various enterprises or make a movie or make a short or make whatever it might be, then I think your confidence level goes up and you're like, yeah, I can do this. And your belief then gets stronger. And just like a small amount of fire makes a small fire and a little bit of heat, where a bigger fire makes a lot of heat, I think that's the same with belief, that the more we believe it, the more we can really pour into it. And then it changes your mindset. Then you start acting a little different. You start carrying yourself a little different. You start saying, well, of course this is going to work, right? Because we're involved with it. We've done this before. So let's go get the right investors. Let's go. No. We're not going to settle for that over there. We're going to take this. So belief yeah, Napoleon Hill did a lot of research behind Think and Grow Rich. So what the mind can conceive and believe, it can achieve. And the more you believe, the more it fuels the things we're trying to do in life.
To use a financial term, it's compound interest, the belief. It has a snowball effect.
Daniel, I'm loving everything you're saying. Yes, because I say this all the time. Compounding, we all look at it. Well, not everybody does. We educate people on it a lot of times about how powerful compound interest is, because people get wealthy over our. We have so many clients that are wealthy and become wealthier as they get older because of compounding, but it doesn't look super exciting in those early years. Same things happen. So the same thing happens with our efforts. The
Mm.
work we put into things, our efforts compound over time if we stick with it and keep on the path and keep learning and keep improving and be patient at times. So
That
I agree.
life experience is just so valuable, like you say, when you're printing those quotes. Because I get frustrated with the quotes sometimes because I'm like, we spend all this time reading them, but are we actually living them? So when you're a young guy and you print in those quotes, it's like, how do we actually fill the kind of toolbox with life experience and actually experience some of the things that those quotes are
I
trying to tell us?
I agree. I yeah, I totally
Yeah,
agree.
there's no you just because I'm someone who's very much a fan of the pivot, not the indirect path, like a lot of lefts and a lot of rights. And I used to get frustrated because I'm like, oh, it'd be so nice to have one neat packaged lane that I just fit in.
Right.
I was, there was a kid in my primary school, when they asked the children, what do you want to be when you grow up? And there was like six astronauts, three fairy princesses, and a fireman. One kid actually wrote that he just wanted to be a shopkeeper, and he's been one ever, for 30 or 40 years. And I kind of admire that because for some reason he knew that when he was so young. And there was a simplicity to that. Whereas I've gone on a very indirect path, but I'm also now, I'm so grateful for this indirect path because it's taught me so much. And you venturing into the film world, with that curiosity and that courage to delve into a new endeavor that you're not necessarily familiar with, and then to have it. I mean, it's been very successful on the awards circuit. It's exciting times. Um,
Yeah.
I don't know where the question in this is. It's more of a statement. I think there's great value in the pivot.
I agree. Yeah, the pivot in the like you're talking about technology company pivots, I think, but it does happen in everything. You get into something, and is that what you're referring to? The pivot,
Just
like when you
actual
get into a business.
career pivots, like like I left architecture to go and tour the UK as a drummer. And then I ended up in Germany with as a father, which was so much more fulfilling. And it was when I moved to Germany that I started to pursue a career in acting, writing, filmmaking. So it's been, but they've all informed one another.
I'll tell you what, Germany. So when I was a kid, I probably learned a lot of the language because they had like the main channels like ZDF, VDR, RTL,
Mm.
and we would get them with the subtitles because in Aachen, it's right on the border of Belgium and Holland. So we would get, or the Belgium and the Netherlands, we would get like the English ones with subtitles, but then we'd watch a lot of German TV, which still a big dubbing. One of the
Mm.
few, I think, Germany and France are two of the biggest where they still dub, and it's very good dubbing of films. But I think it's been extremely impressive. I watch things on Netflix and I love watching them in German. It helps me with my German.
Mm.
And like, oh my gosh, this is a German production. Switch to German. I'm gonna watch it in German. And man, the filmmaking, obviously the technology has changed a lot, but I think German filmmaking and storytelling, whether it's series or films, is so incredible. I think it's advanced so much in the last, I don't know the time frame and the exact story of it. I've just observed this. And at some point I said, man, these are really high quality productions that they're doing, and they're very good at it, and obviously have a very vibrant film and arts culture in Germany.
That's what appealed to me initially as I tapped into a vibe here, an appreciation, because I was in London kind of slogging away as a drummer and kind of getting screwed by promoters. And then I came to Berlin for a trip, and I was in a couple of bars where bands were playing, and I realized that there was this appreciation around art, and that was very big on my list of kind of priorities. So, but I've been on a lot of German film sets and had a lot of wild experiences as an Australian actor in Germany. It's been pretty crazy. Um, so I've seen the machinery behind, some of the German productions and so on. So I've endless stories about that. But
Yeah, we'll have to talk about him maybe in Berlin at the
yeah,
film
yeah,
festivals.
yeah.
So,
So in terms of so you invested in the film in terms of uh distribution. You were saying that in a traditional sense, you believe it's important to get distribution front up. How did that look like? Like, how did you go about getting that?
yeah, I can kind of tell you. I'll tell you what happened with us. So again, I was learning on the entire process. So just at every step of the way, I think there's this element where like, yeah, whatever, I'll just write the checks and we'll be fine. I'll just do whatever I want to do. Well, there's a reason that to get financing sometimes it has to be X, Y, Z. So we had a distributor that had come on board, was going to distribute the film. And I think probably from their standpoint too, because a lot of independent film distributors, they just have a certain path, right? There's not necessarily a lot of money spent on it. Sadly, they don't have to deal with someone like me who's like, no, we have a lot different expectations than that, right? That's not, they just have a system and a machine that works, and it works well. And we had a pretty good distributor, but I didn't feel at the time like they were in line. We weren't alignment with the expectations of what we wanted to have the film do or expect. And in hindsight, maybe it's also they just didn't want to tell me like your expectations are out of line. They're too high. That's very possible. But since they never did say that at one point, then prior to us doing, I think the Hollywood, the Beverly Hills screening, which went really well last August. Was it last August? I think it was last August. They had offered me the ability to have the rights back. And so we took that. And so Relation Media, one of our subsidiaries, we set it up as a distributor. We went through Bitmax, but we're also working with another distributor. I guess I got to wait till it's signed at this point, but that we think very highly of, and they're one of the top up and coming independent distributors. And yeah, so I think it's a learning experience, and meaning you have obviously actor names monetized, right? In the foreign markets, especially, you have certain names and they go, oh, we're just gonna do that. That can be good or bad too, by the way, because we've all seen films that were like, this isn't that great of a film, but it has some good actors in it. Maybe they were on set 2 days or 4 days, but their name's attached to it. Just how the industry works. So yeah, we've learned a lot in that arena, and we're still learning. But I think the thing, have you ever heard of Holly Shorts? So Holly Shorts, Theo
Mm.
Dumont is one of the owners of Holly Shorts. Is a PR. He was our publicist for the film. Great guy. I like him a lot. Just my goal would be to be as calm, cool, and collected as he is, and he's very calm, cool, and collected, but he's just a great person. So we did a panel at Holly Shorts, and the topic was film finance. And what I had said there is, I think there's a few reasons that it's hard for independent filmmakers to make money. Now, one is you don't have enough money often. Well, actually, the first thing I said is you don't make good enough films, and there's shock in the room. And I said, not because you can't, but because there's a rush sometimes to get things out, right? You have to make sure, we all know what good films look like. And you have to be willing to keep editing it. Don't just listen to your best friend, your buddy, or your mom, who's like, oh, it's unbelievable. Of course it is. She would think it'd be unbelievable if you just made it a YouTube video. So you got to make sure that you have that perfection and that eye of, if you're trying to create high quality content, it needs to be high quality to the extent you can do that, which people have the ability to do, but not always the patience. Second thing, then you have to have some sort of a budget, because especially in the lower levels, more money does equal better production quality. You can have more days on set, more editing time, higher, more crew. Just there is some amount of money you have to spend on a film. You could waste it if you spent too much, but you do need some amount of money. But then you have this gap that exists, that it is weird, and I've had a harder time navigating it initially as well, that there is this money extraction machine that sits between producers and monetization. And it's like, oh, you want to monetize? Well, you got to give this person this percent, this person this percent, write an upfront check. No promises, no guarantees, but we're good at this. Trust us. That's not normally how investments are done. Like if we have some projects in Grand Junction on the other side of the Rockies where I don't know how many units we've built in one of our funds, but they're 100, let's just say. These are townhomes, homes, apartments, things like that. You go into it knowing how it's going to monetize on the back end, right? You're like, okay, look, here's the rent. There's always some risk about it, but you kind of have an idea of how it monetizes. Not the way it is in film, which makes it very, very difficult to get that breakthrough, because you don't have mechanisms necessarily just to seize control, right? You're still at the behest of the infrastructure and the machine. I think that's why YouTube's done so well and taken off, and why podcasts like yours are dominate. I mean, arguably, let's definitely not talk about this morning, but I mean, arguably, I think you know where I'm going with this. Arguably, if you look at the shift in how the election happened in the United States last night, this was influenced much more by online media platforms, podcasts, people who of influence, but not tied to the main normal media machine that exists. So I have no idea where that will go in the film industry, but I just know that there's this infrastructure set up between monetization and the filmmakers that makes it very, very difficult as independent filmmakers. And then lastly, you do have to spend money on promoting it too. That's the other thing, is it does take some amount of money and dollars to promote things. And so I don't think people want distribution. They want somebody that is going to promote their film. That's almost what you need, more than just distribution, because you can get it out there. It's getting it promoted is the key.
I love that you touched on patience, because it takes time to grow a garden, and also that feedback, that critical feedback you're talking about, like really hearing those hard truths about something. I've embraced that as an artist, because it's never as scary as, I went through a period a few years ago where I took a deep breath and was sending things to people and saying, give me the brutal truth. But it was, it was always constructive, and it was like, it wasn't as scary as I thought perhaps it would be when you get those on, it gives you stuff to work with. Patience is massive. I just think good things take time. Yeah. Like you say.
I think the analogy of the garden is really good. And by the way, that the brutal truth is interesting, because I did have a script I had optioned for a while. I still like it, but I let the rights revert on it. But I had sent it out for coverage, professional coverage, right? Ooh. You get that back, you're like, whoa. And then a buddy of mine who's a producer has made a bunch of films, and we'll probably work together on stuff in the future. He's out in Hollywood. He's like, don't worry, this happens, but take it, you got to look at it. But yeah, it can be, it's brutal, but you need that, right? It's like, don't find out after you spent all kinds of money and a year of your life on it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. It can kind of derail you, but also the sweet spot on the budget thing, just observing on sets here, in the early days, I did a lot of extra work just to get experience on sets. And it was basically like film school for me, because I wasn't acting, I was observing. And, I just remember on some of the bigger productions, one person would come up and I'd sign something on a clipboard. And then 10 minutes later, another person would come up perhaps with the same clipboard. And I'd be like, does there need to be two clipboard people, But I agree with you 100% in terms of money allowing you to do what's needed, or, to help this thing. But finding that sweet spot of what's enough people, what's too little, having the ability to block off a street would be awesome, because I've just had so many issues with the general public when you haven't blocked stuff off. And when people with cameras, they go a bit crazy with cameras and stuff. So it's it's nice.
I can only imagine the regulations in Germany around getting this. You're gonna have to get the guy from the town who's been in this position. No. He can only sign up between 12 and 2 tomorrow. So, let's let's
it's
be
kind.
honest. There's a system and a structure to it. There's got to be
Yes.
in Germany.
Yeah, it's
So
kind
I
of
love it.
it's kind of a double-edged sword thing because sometimes you get these amazing locations that don't need any permit, but other times you're caught in very heavy rules and
Yeah.
regulation. So
Yeah.
there's a lot of contradiction. I find a lot of contradiction in Germany. You can go as fast as you want on the autobahn, but nobody crosses the light on a red man.
Right.
There's contradict. I just find contradiction
The- the-
everywhere, which
the-
fascinates me.
I think that there probably is everywhere, right? I
True.
think, and that's what makes film so cool, right? Because you're exploring those
Mm.
contradictions. Is it good or is it bad? It's like, well, maybe it's not. It's yeah. I think how is it, we could talk more offline as well, but I think I don't know enough about the credits in Germany and how the film credits work, but man, I have to at some point explore things in Europe
It's
because I would love
interest.
to spend time there.
Yeah, it's interesting you ask, actually. I was speaking to an actor friend yesterday. Germany loves to have its own version of everything. So Germany has its own IMDb.
Oh,
Germany has its own equivalent of all these things, and it's been a little tricky for me because it's taken me a long time to get accepted by these German um, crediting bodies and so on because I'm Australian and my history here, and I don't have drama school here, here in Germany and things like that. So
interesting.
I have been at times frustrated that Germany insists on having its own. It's kind of like an island, so it will have its own IMDb, it will have its own things, and I've also been getting a bit frustrated lately because there's a lot of US films and series I want to watch, and they haven't been distributed in Germany yet. So then you got to rip out the VPN,
I was just
or
gonna say you can VPN those things.
you
You
can
like,
VPN,
oh
but
wait, can we say that on here? I'm just kidding.
you
Maybe
can,
you
but
can't.
but then there's issues if I want to watch like Hulu or something. You need a US credit card or someone with an account
Ah,
there, and then you VPN. So
yeah.
uh that some of that. But in answer to your question, it has its own version of things. So a friend contacted me yesterday and he was like, I don't understand why you haven't credited some things. And I was like, because they won't accept me on that platform, but other people have been crediting me on that platform and I still haven't been able to be accepted
Interesting.
by them. And that is in me has really, when I first came to Germany, I was at a film festival and I was starting to pursue acting seriously, like over 10 years ago now. And a woman at the festival, she apologized to me. She said, I'm so sorry. And she patted me on the head and she said, there's no need for you here as an Australian actor. There's simply no need.
Ooh,
And practically, I understood where she was coming from. Didn't have much German, got an accent. Um, but that actually, in terms of what we're talking about, motivation and things, that actually drove me. I was like, I believe I can do this here. And I believe if you have a dream or a goal, you can pursue that regardless of where you are. And over time, I built experience and contacts and networks, and am now working with people that I built those networks with and have collaborated with. And every time I've had a little win, I've always thought back to that moment because it actually gave me a lot more drive than me turning around and going, I can't pursue my dream here.
it's fun to do things that people think are impossible or difficult, isn't it?
Mm,
And so I think what people don't know is that all we were talking about this earlier. It refines you. It makes you better faster, right? By having those obstacles. Oh, I wish we would learn more from our successes and when things went easy. We just don't, right?
mm.
As humans, it's the tension and the conflict and the struggle that we improve so much better and come out the other side. But there's always risk and there's fear, right? Because it's like, what if not? We have that inside voice that's like, what if it doesn't work out? What if this happens? And I think it's like you will figure it out, and then the obstacles that at the time you did definitely would not want to have. This is not like you'd wish them into your life to have these obstacles, but I think sometimes in hindsight you look at them And you say, yeah, it made me better, faster, it refined me, made me stronger, made me more convicted on the path that I was on. And then, yeah, ultimately more rewarding in the end, right?
Definitely, definitely. And Germany is also very direct, which I appreciate in a business sense. And I think it's awesome what you having this little bit of German background and, going to Berlinale and stuff. That's an awesome balance because in Australia, when it comes to business, it can be a little bit wishy-washy sometimes. But here it's so direct that I appreciate it in terms of getting things done. It can also be a little bit brutal, when someone tells you that your your jumper is horrible or something like that. If we could find a middle between the kind of Aussie thing and the German thing, but in a business sense, it's definitely benefited me, like because there's no you cut to the chase. There's no dancing around the porridge, so to
Yeah.
speak, and that helps in business, I think.
Yeah, and I'm assuming that you have access to the other European market. I mean, there's so many European countries that I know are doing a lot of. I have some friends in Spain that I know are doing some great things, and I've heard that in the Czech Republic, and just a lot. There's so many places I think that is great for filmmaking, and at least in Europe, things are a lot closer than.
Mm.
I mean, U.S. The next states are closer, but everything's pretty far away. Whereas there, you can pretty quickly get to a lot of places.
Yeah, for sure. Are there some non-negotiables for you in terms of how you structure your time and your daily type stuff? Are you quite spontaneous, or do you give yourself time blocks?
Mm. There should be more non-negotiables, probably. I'm a people person, so I like people. I like talking to people. I like, I get into conversations. And a lot of times I find my schedule runs me, where
Mm,
I look at it like bam, bam, bam. You just got one thing after another. I think time blocking is something that I try to do. I just tell you some things I've improved on, but I'm still trying to get even better at them. One of the things is, if you know who Huberman is, like he's
mm.
a very, yeah, he had this thing I saw a long time ago. It was really talking about the phases of your day. And so I do try to structure my day where I'll try to get tasks done and be on point in the morning until about 12, 1, 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And then I try to do more creative and brainstorming and strategy sessions in the afternoon, because there's something about the brain science of that I think is good. But I should probably be better at it. I think from a non-negotiable standpoint, I've gotten better at it over the years just because I've gotten busier. So necessity is the mother of invention in saying no to things. You have to say
Mm.
no to things. It's hard because you like these things. No, but maybe it would be this. Yes, maybe it would, but you have to say no to certain things, because by saying no to certain things, you can have more energy and say yes to other things. So it is important that you say, I think people say no to things, but we can all probably improve at that.
That's could transition nicely into it's a tradition on the show to have guests offer listeners some kind of challenge. Can be anything. It could be relative to anything that's benefited you or that you think could benefit people in their kind of daily lives. That saying no is one already. Like that's a big one. But sometimes the no's, especially in the entertainment industry, is that sometimes the no's are more important than the yeses.
Mm,
I think it's often easier to say yes to something than to to say no.
yeah.
But is there anything else that springs to mind in terms of a little challenge?
I mean, my challenge to people would be similar to what I say to our Parson X teammates, because we're a great company. We have great people. That's what makes our company great, is the people that we have involved, and they care about our clients. We're great with our clients. We have personal relationships with most all of our clients, and it's one of the things that makes us successful. But what I tell them all the time is, whenever you're getting excited and motivated, take that, and the challenge is to focus it into some kind of work, into work that you can go execute at, because you have to have an action bias, right? There's too much of the thought process. So the challenge is to go do it, but do something. And because if you don't have an action bias, you spend time thinking and processing, and maybe I'll do it, and maybe I'll do this, and you just put it off all the time. So there has to be a bias. It doesn't have to be perfect. Just do it. Do the best you can with what you have. And then either maybe you'll profit from it, maybe you'll learn from it, but at least you did it. And it, because it creates momentum in the trajectory of where you're going. We talked about compound interest. it's 2 millimeter shifts sometimes that change the trajectory of where you're going. So it doesn't have to be these huge things. And you don't have to say, I have to get everything in place before I take action. It's like, yeah, plan it out. Think about what you want to do. But if there's some people have been putting off, and it's like, why have I been putting that off? You know what? Forget that. I'm going to go do it and right now. So I would just challenge everybody to start taking action. Don't need to do everything, but take the next step towards something that you've been putting off and that you want to do, because you can do it. It's just somebody else. If somebody else can do it, you can do it.
That's awesome, because it goes full circle to where we started from, which was you taking action with that first book that you self-published and so on. It's very much, the action clearly yields some kind of growth or trajectory or movement, or it's all in the action. And I think as artists, I know myself, I can often get caught in the daydreaming or the kind of abstract notion of something that ain't gonna move anything forward. It's got to be broken down into like the tangible, doable pieces that you're talking about. But it's really nice in terms of your story, because you've clearly taken action consistently.
And I mean, the other challenge is more of a just life philosophy.
Another one.
You got to have fun. No, it's not even a challenge. Just have fun along the way, right?
Yeah.
Don't beat yourself up. We're way, way too hard on ourselves, right?
Yes.
It's going to be okay, right?
And you said it too, the relief that some people had that you guys did a dark comedy, because like sometimes you could go to these festivals and it's like, wow, it's like it's heavy, so it's a little bit of like relief.
Well, you didn't ask me the question I get sometimes where they say, hey, what kind of movies do you want to make? You want to make some, I'm like, just want to make movies that I want to watch and entertain people. And it's not some deep ulterior thing, at least at this point, right? I just want to make movies that are going to be fun. And it's like, they're like, whoa, that's kind of shallow, whatever. So, oh, okay. When you're writing the checks, you can decide what you make. So
life is too seriously to be taken seriously.
Yeah.
That might have been in that book that you initially.
Right, yeah. So yeah.
Well, I really appreciate your time and the little reboot we had.
Yeah, it's a pleasure.
Yeah, it's been awesome. And yeah, I can't wait to see the film.
Yep.
When I can get my hands on it.
Yep.
Excited to see that one.
I'll make sure you can. Yeah, I'll get it to you. So
cool. Well, I really appreciate your time.
Yeah. Hey, Daniel, thanks so much. And congratulations on all the things you're doing, man. Right. You're doing it. You're one of the guys who's doing it. 200 episodes on 200 episodes. You're acting, you got podcasts, you got all kinds of things going on. This is great.
I appreciate it. It's nice to hear. Sometimes I'm in a little bit of a bubble and I lose a bit of perspective of that. So it's very nice to hear. But no, we'll have to do it again.
That sounds great. Yeah. And hopefully I'll see you maybe in Berlin, or if you're over here in the States, let me know.
There you go, guys. Honest ratings for the show on Apple are appreciated. If you have a guest suggestion, please feel free to reach out on my website at danielthomas.co. I'm also on social media at Mr. Dan Thomas. Catch you on the next episode.